Good afternoon. We're just going to wait a few more minutes for the rest of the attendees to finish logging in. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. My name is Alicia Hunt. I am the City of Medford's Director of Energy and Environment. I'm also the Acting Director of Community Development. Thank you all for coming this evening to hear about Medford Energy's aggregation and how Medford is green and how you can contribute and support that effort. So the electricity aggregation is where we, as the city, contract for electricity on behalf of all of our residents. Medford decided to do this aggregation because residents were asking us for help. People were knocking on their doors, calling them, mailing them, saying, you should have a different supplier of electricity, we have better rates, and they sometimes seem to be offering the moon. And residents asked us, can you recommend this one? What about that? Is this a good price? And some of them were okay and some were not. In order for the city to provide a recommendation on any kind of vendor, we have to do a procurement process. We have to go through a selection. And for electricity, the way we are legally allowed to do this in Massachusetts is through the electricity aggregation process. So we went out to bid for electricity on behalf of our residents. And some of the reasons we chose to do this was to provide price stability. So this gives one flat rate for our residents for 3 years, as opposed to National Grid's rates change every 6 months. We can recommend this supplier because we went through a selection process and we chose them for a reason. And part of that reason is their good price. And part of that reason is because we can look at and negotiate the contract terms. So residents may leave the aggregation or join the aggregation at any time with no penalties. And there's some other little nuances, but that we are keeping an eye on these contract terms. And if residents were to have problems with the aggregation, they can always contact us here at the city. as well as we manage the end of the contract, so we can renegotiate new rates, we can bid new rates, or we can choose to end the aggregation if we're not able to get good rates. And the other reason is because we were able to procure for the residents additional clean energy as part of the base aggregation. There's also a very smooth and easy way for residents to support 100% clean energy on their electric bill through this aggregation. So today we have with us Larry Cretion, who's the Executive Director of the Green Energy Consumer Alliance. This is the nonprofit that is supplying the clean energy for Medford's aggregation. So I will now turn this over to Larry.
Hi, everybody. Alicia, thank you very much for the introduction. I think people from Medford are familiar with this photograph here. It's one of my favorites of the projects that we get involved with. We love renewable energy, but particularly when it's involving the community directly, as it is here in the case of the McGlynn Middle School in Medford. So as Alicia said, we're a nonprofit. We're based in the Jamaica Plain part of Boston and also in Providence, Rhode Island. We serve both states. And as nonprofits do, we have a mission, which is to harness the power of energy consumers to speed the transition to a low carbon future. I have a great staff. Kate's with me today, and we have about 20 people who work, but we report to a board of directors, not to any shareholders. No one owns our business. We're a nonprofit, and we've been around for a long time, since 1982. And there are really two aspects to what we do. Whenever we see an energy issue, we try to decide, should we create a program for consumers to make a difference, or should we be advocating for a change in public policy at the state or local level? And oftentimes we do both on an issue. So in this case, with renewable energy, we think that Massachusetts and Rhode Island should have rules that require more renewable energy by law. But with aggregation, we're actually giving communities an opportunity to do something voluntarily, taking advantage of what the market has to offer. And so here's a little schematic that hopefully will make some sense to you. But over on the far right is really you. You're the community, you're in charge. Nothing happens unless your elected officials, people that you elect to represent you, decide to make it happen. And so we're taking advantage of a law that passed in Massachusetts in 1997, where communities could choose the supplier of their electricity. So if you can see on my cursor, I'm circling, the community can choose an electric supply contract through a competitive power supplier that they get to choose with the advice of a consultant. In this case, Medford's consultant is a company called Good Energy. What they do is they put the electricity supply out to bid as an alternative to what you would normally get from National Grid's basic service. And with that, the competitive power supplier that has been chosen, it's Dynegy, I believe, from Medford, they're responsible for giving you the electricity that keeps your lights and your refrigerator going, but also they have to buy what's called renewable energy certificates, or RECs, to comply with the state's renewable portfolio standard. Now that's all good, that's required by the state. But what you're doing in Medford, like many other communities now, it's a growing movement, is you're adding more renewable energy voluntarily by community choice. And that's where we come in as an organization. We buy renewable energy certificates from generators, and we sell those to the competitive supplier, Dynegy. And so you're getting more renewable energy than required by law. And we're happy to say that it's at a good price. Here is how typically the program would look. In Massachusetts, when a community like Medford decides to do aggregation, everyone who was on National Grid's basic service gets moved into the aggregation unless you want to opt out. And so, but you're giving ample opportunity to opt out. You can opt out at any time without penalty, as Alicia said, but you would be automatically enrolled otherwise. And then you're even given a chance. The program in Medford adds 5% more renewable energy than required by state law. It varies. Somerville is 10%, Arlington's 11%, and Brookline is 30% more. Most communities are in that 5 to 10% range. But you could first, and that adds about $1 a month to most people's bills, depending upon your consumption. But you're allowed to opt down, as we call it. You can get the electricity that only complies with state law, or you can opt up to 100%. And if you don't want to be part of the aggregation at all, you can go back to National Grid's basic service, or you can go to an individual competitive supplier. But Alicia's talked about that, and I'll get to that at the very end about why we think this aggregation is the better way for just about everybody. Here's a map that shows the growth of aggregation. There's a lot of communities, light blue, that are in transition to joining the bandwagon. But there are some that we call dark green, like Brookline and Newton. And then there's different shades. Medford would be in the light green area, which we think is great. And then there's a bunch that are brown. They're doing aggregation, but they're not adding more renewable energy by law. And this has been growing quite a bit in the last 3 or 4 years in Massachusetts. And also Rhode Island is a place where it's developing too. If you're interested in a lot of details, we wrote a paper that you can get on our website, www.greenenergyconsumers.org/aggregation. And it's the second edition. We do this one every now and then. But in February, we did a report. From our perspective, we're not involved in every aggregation in the state, but we're involved in a bunch, and we have some data about the others. And we're very pleased to be able to talk about what it means in terms of for consumers and for the environment. Here's something we think is really dramatic. By our count, we're estimating where Massachusetts will be in about 2 years. The city of Boston is going to join the aggregation movement in this winter, January or February probably, along with several other communities like Waltham and Quincy. Excuse me. So we think eventually communities that are not involved in aggregation will be the exception, not the rule. We think almost everybody in Massachusetts will have joined an aggregation through their community. And we think that by 2022, that there'll be about 700,000 megawatt hours of zero emission energy brought to the state voluntarily by community choice, over and above what the state's renewable portfolio standard mandate requires. And so if you were to break that down into the equivalent of wind turbines, like the large wind turbines in Gloucester, it would be the equivalent of about 200 wind turbines. That's pretty dramatic. Now, they're not all located in Massachusetts. They're not all wind turbines, but that's the equivalency that we would want to talk about. So a lot of the power is coming from, it can come legitimately from any New England state, because that's essentially we're part of a New England power pool. And the reason we do this, and that's what Alicia and I have been talking about, is the state's renewable portfolio standard does go up a couple of percent per year, but it goes up too slowly in order to, quite frankly, save the planet and to solve some public health issues. And it needs to be accelerated. And we can do that by adding the renewable energy like you do here in the city of Medford. Here are some statistics that I was able to pull. Right now, there are about 15,000 households in Medford in the aggregation, which is more than when we started in January of 2020. So as more consumers, maybe they drop their old competitive power supply contract, they're coming on. About 75 have opted up to 100%, and 96 have opted down to the level of the Massachusetts Renewable Portfolio Standard. And so if they want to save $1 a month or something like that, that's their right, and that's what they're doing. But collectively, we are projecting, the year's not over, that Medford will probably increase demand for renewable energy by about 6,000 megawatt hours, which is about between one and the equivalent of 1 and 2 large scale wind turbines like they might have in Gloucester or Plymouth or Scituate. And that's equal to if 1,000 homes were 100% renewable energy by, say, wind or solar, which is pretty significant. So the point, when the whole community is doing this, even if they're only doing 5%, and 75% are opting up, but it makes a big difference. And so we feel as if it's a wonderful thing that you're doing here in Medford. Here we have a map of the resources that we, as an organization, buy from, and think of it as a big soup. We buy from all these wind turbines. We buy from some projects that are called anaerobic digestion, which might be cow power. It might be from a sewage treatment facility, like in Lewiston, Maine. We buy from small hydro. We don't buy from Hydro-Quebec in Canada. There's a few of those projects that we buy from. And we buy from over 350 solar projects throughout New England. And we deliver those renewable energy certificates to communities like Medford. And it can vary from quarter to quarter is how we deliver them. But just for the record, so far, Medford has received some power from the Hull wind turbine, which is one of the first in New England. Also, a low impact hydro project in Hadley, and also some anaerobic digestion in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and some solar. So what we try to do is, even though you can buy from any state in New England, we really try to talk to generators who are have projects going in Massachusetts, and that's what we try to send to communities like yourselves, including the wind turbine in your own backyard at the McGlynn Middle School. So our goal is to try to add more renewable energy at a good price that's affordable, and to try to create as many in-state jobs as we possibly can, so that we're not importing fossil fuels like natural gas and sending the money out of state. So program details. The program's been going since December, I guess, and it will go for another couple of years. There's a great website that Alicia in Good Energy provides some content on. The supplier is called Dynergy, and the basic price that's fixed for 3 years is it's called Medford Local Green, which is 5% more renewable energy than required by law. It's 11.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So what you pay for it depends upon how much electricity you use. You can pay a little bit more for Medford Premium Local Green, which is 100% renewable energy. That's actually more than 100% more than required by law. We're trying to make sure that everything we're doing is above and beyond the requirement of state law. And if you wanted to opt down to without not having any additional renewable energy, it would be 11.3 cents per kilowatt hour. An important thing for our organization, which tries to be pro-consumer and pro-environment, is the reason years ago we got on board with aggregation is because we think it's the best bet for a consumer. Basic service that National Grid provides is regulated, and it's okay, but the price changes every 6 months, and they have to go into the market every so often just before the 6 months are up, and they have to take whatever price is in the marketplace. So the price can fluctuate every 6 months, and it doesn't have enough renewable energy, as I said from the beginning, in order to accomplish what we're trying to do in the state. Then there's the competitive power supply market, where people will knock on your door, they'll send you mailings, and the Attorney General, Maura Healey, has done a couple of analyses, 2018, then she did an update that they looked at people who selected those individual competitive power suppliers on their own, ended up paying more than if they were with National Grid's basic service. Over 3 years, consumers paid $253 more than they would have if they stayed on basic service. And what she also found that a lot of those suppliers were also what we call greenwashing. They were saying that they had a product that was going to be helpful for the environment when it wasn't necessarily the case. And so in our viewpoint, we think that that market is just not worth the effort. We think that consumers would be better off staying on basic service, or best yet, doing something, doing an aggregation like Medford's providing. So we think it covers all the bases that are important to consumers. My email is larry@greenenergyconsumers.org, and our website's greenenergyconsumers.org. And I hope that was good basic information for you in Medford. And I think Alicia and I would be happy, and there's a picture of Alicia right there with me in the background, and former Mayor McGlynn. So if you have any questions, I think Alicia and I would be happy to take them.
Thank you, Larry. That was very helpful. Again, I didn't share this, but my email address, it's actually best you can reach my office at Enviro, ENVIRO, at medford-ma.org, or you can give us a call at 781-393-2137. And we have several staff in our office who can answer questions about the aggregation, help you with electric suppliers. Sometimes we take a look at people's electric bills for them and help them decide whether they're getting a good rate. Sometimes people don't realize that they have a secondary supplier. One piece of advice that we always offer people is that if somebody comes to your door and asks to see the electric bill, don't show it to them. That will not be on behalf of the city, no matter what they say. If they knock on your door, they are not from National Grid or from the city of Medford. If they're knocking on your door and asking to see your electric bill, you can always call us here in the office and ask about it. We do sometimes offer that you could bring your electric bill here to City Hall. We'll look at it or email us a copy, and we can give you some feedback as to whether you have a good deal on your bill or not. Whether if you're not sure you're in the aggregation, you can look at your bill. It would say Dynegy Medford on it. If you don't know and you want to know, we're happy to take a look at it here in City Hall and give advice on that. And we can do that because we have done this aggregation. If we had not done this aggregation, then we couldn't give you advice on your electric bill. So I hope that helps explain some of what we're doing, why we're doing it. And also on Saturday, we're having a green energy walkthrough. It's in place of our annual Harvester Energy Festival. Some of the slides that you saw were photos from our annual Harvester Energy Festival. Due to the pandemic, we're unable to hold that as a large event, but we do have a number of local organizations and local businesses that are coming to have tables so that residents can speak to the organizations and businesses in a safe outdoor environment, get their questions answered without having to go inside of a building to do that. I know a lot of people prefer face-to-face contact. So that is this Saturday, October 17th, from noon to 3, behind the McGlynn School at the base of our wind turbine. So thank you. I don't see any questions coming in. Am I missing that? No, I think that's correct. So thank you all for coming today, and we appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Last word, I guess, would be if you want more information, you can get it at medfordcea.com, as well as the information that Alicia gave. So thank you. Have a great day.